What the?
Host acquired.
Who said that? Okay, it's gonna be okay!
Fast, funny, and fervently earnest, Blue Beetle stands out in an increasingly overcrowded field of superhero movies. Clocking in at just over 2 hours, the pacing is snappy enough that it never overstays its welcome. And while it's not entirely unpredictable, the tale of Jaime Reyes and the sentient outer space scarab, who's symbiotically linked to him, avoids becoming an eye-rolling origin story cliche by remaining deeply empathetic towards its ensemble. Sure, it's thrillingly action-packed, but the familial bond at the heart of the film is where Blue Beetle transcends the trappings of its genre. Xolo Maridueña delivers a delightfully refreshing performance as Jaime. The Cobra Kai alum imbues the character with a sort of sweet goofiness, tinged with the concern and uncertainty of someone watching their family and their entire community face the ravages of gentrification. There's a clear delineation between have and have not, rapidly established by the sparkling towers of Palmera City overlooking the neighborhoods its people are being increasingly priced out of. So the setting of the film is in this fictional town called Palmera City, which I think is supposed to be like this quasi-Miami-esque place in this destination called the Edge Keys. And I'll have a lot more to say and write about this later, but it's really interesting the way that the script tries to tackle economic inequality in these sort of resort spaces. You really do see, for instance, like the mansions and like the snazzy office buildings, and then you see the neighborhood that Jaime and his family live in. And the difference is pretty stark. I think that there's only really so much you can do in like a DC superhero movie when you're talking about economic inequality, but it does do a really good job of showing, rather than just saying, that the Reyes family is struggling financially. The tragedy of Jaime's backstory lies not in a singular devastating loss or an unhappy home life, but in the constant failures of an economic system he's tried so tirelessly to excel within. The script, penned by Gareth Dunnett Alcocer, critiques the so-called American dream as Jaime returns triumphantly with a college degree and hopes of social mobility for his family, only to be met with a job cleaning the mansion of tech CEO Victoria Cord, played by Susan Sarandon. Within this commentary on class lies a deeply fun, superpowered adventure, complete with an iconic suit designed by Maes C. Rubeo, whose work can also be seen in WandaVision and Thor: Love and Thunder. It's gorgeous, somehow treading the razor-thin line between technological and organic, and its accuracy to the comics will surely please Blue Beetle fans.
Yeah, that's more like it.
The glimpse we get of suits belonging to former Beatles, Dan Garrett and Ted Cord, perfectly embody the campy heroes of the 20th century without looking too patently ridiculous. The famous bug ship, too, reads as fully functional and practically made, while simultaneously staying true to the silliness of Blue Beetle's previous incarnations. Here's the thing. Jaime has always been different from his predecessors. He's able to unlock the full power of the scarab as it fuses to his spine. Garrett and Cord merely donned Technicolor costumes to become their alter egos. Under Ángel Manuel Soto's direction, Jaime's first transformation into the Blue Beetle is genuinely horrifying. Maridueña manages to convey the pain of his fusion as the sentient suit flings him throughout the house. The screams of the Reyes family are played for laughs, but there is a genuine disgust in their reaction, at one point comparing the transformation to a demonic possession. It's these moments that remind the audience that Jaime really is just a normal kid who wanted better for his family. The chosen one element of Blue Beetle is unfortunately predictable, and the scarab itself is strangely sanitized from the more hostile comic version. The alien invention, voiced by Becky G, becomes surprisingly endearing and bilingual by the end, but its personality is clearly tailored to a wider movie-going audience than it is to comic fans.
Re-entry systems ready.
Wait, no.
While I do think that the film is doing very interesting different things, and there was an opportunity to like highlight how Jaime is a different kind of superhero and how being Latino affects that, I do think that some of the marketing really like lost its focus and chose to really like hone in at first on just the basic superhero elements, when those to me are not the most interesting parts of the film. It's the family, it's the identity. So unfortunately, I don't know, weirdly the superhero stuff it doesn't make this movie interesting, and I think people are tired of superheroes.
What is he talking about?
He's talking about this.
Oh, I forgot how bad it looks.
For the Reyes family to serve as the emotional anchor to Jaime's ascent into unexpected superherodom, they must complement Maridueña's charisma, and each and every one of them do. Comprised of Reyes matriarch Nana, Jaime's parents, his anarchist Uncle Rudy, and irreverent younger sister Milagro, the group's chemistry is astounding. This feels like a real family, loudly affectionate, fiercely protective, and prone to excitedly talk over one another. I am also Mexican-American, and I think watching this, I felt it was just like one of the first times I've watched a major superhero film like this and really felt connected to the family. They feel so real. It's crazy. It's like, you could tell me that this group of people really is related to each other and really does live in this house together all of the time, and I would just be like, oh yeah, of course. Belisa Escobedo shines as Milagro, delivering a gut punch of a performance during a particularly devastating moment of grief. George Lopez injects Rudy with charm, even in the character's cynicism. It's a great role for the comedian, giving him room to play this off-the-beaten-path character with his particular brand of eccentricity. And really, if you've watched as much of his sitcom as I have, he already felt like your uncle anyway. Jaime needs his family, and this movie is just as much about them as it is Jaime. What's wonderful about Blue Beetle is that it's so fiercely, brilliantly, loudly Latine. The multi-generational household, the pot of Vicks under Jaime's nose after he passes out from fusing with the scarab, the Cheech and Chong up in smoke bobbleheads on the dash of Rudy's car, and among it all, English and Spanish spoken together in a flurry of lively conversation. This is a truly bilingual movie. There are no stilted phrases uttered every now and then to clumsily remind the audience that this is a Mexican-American family. The Reyes seamlessly switch between languages without thought. A realistic portrayal of Spanglish, not as English with a few Spanish words sprinkled in, but as a fully functional hybridization of both in equal measure. It points to the necessity of representation both in front of and behind the camera, as Soto has crafted a community that feels authentic rather than pandering.
No! Hi.
Dude, no worries. Just take your time.
Thanks, Jenny.
Ted's daughter, Jenny Cord, played by Bruna Marquezine, unfortunately slots into common cliches of the superhero movie love interest / expositional device. For the first half of Blue Beetle, she only serves as a vehicle to deliver the scarab and eventually information about its history to Jaime. Their romance is rushed and underdeveloped. That's not to criticize the inclusion of yet another romance in yet another superhero film. There are just so many ways it could have been more interesting. Really, Jenny grows exponentially more memorable as the Reyes family adopt her as one of their own, and it's that aspect of the character that deserves highlighting rather than her romantic prospects with Jaime. In a similar vein, Victoria Cord's motivations ultimately prove to be the weakest element of the film. There's something truly fascinating about her rage at initially losing the Cord industry CEO job to her late brother, passed over as implied in the film due to her gender. However, Blue Beetle doesn't quite dive into her psyche beyond rich, bitchy, racist. Sarandon does what she can with the character, but as a villain, Victoria falls flat. She's not a particularly interesting character, which ultimately hinders the climactic confrontation in the final act of the film. What is fascinating, though, is Blue Beetle's willingness to reference historical US corporate and military destabilization of countries in Latin America. The script sometimes pulls its punches when referencing systemic oppression, and it's far from a radical indictment of xenophobia or economic and racial inequality in the US, but it is surprising what Soto manages to say about these subjects in the package of a major superhero film. Despite its missteps, Blue Beetle remains a good time at the theater. Amid the action and the comedy, its emotional core resonates with the experience of growing up in a Latina family. The film is comedic without being cheesy, and hopefully a massive launchpad for Maridueña's career. Though it doesn't always escape some of the genre's worst tendencies, the affectionate Reyes family energizes the entirety of the story. When the stakes are this personal, when the family feels so familiar, when their love is so true, it demonstrates just how special Blue Beetle really is. Under Ángel Manuel Soto's direction, Blue Beetle is a superhero movie that sets itself apart within the bloated genre through the deeply connected bonds of Jaime and the Reyes family. Xolo Maridueña is wonderfully cast, able to convey Jaime's reluctance towards superherodom and the fierce protectiveness he feels for his family and community. His Mexican-American identity isn't just set dressing, it's vital to the character and the plot of the film. Though genre cliches and the villain's relatively uninteresting motivation impede the momentum of the third act, the emotional force behind the movie is enough to make it worth a watch.
It's like Batman stuff.
Batman's a fascist.
After you've seen Blue Beetle, tell us what you think in the comments below. And for even more reviews like this, stick with IGN.
Whatever you can imagine, I can create.
Let's party.
Nice choice.